Guys, we're here today recording our ice type tier list. If you guys enjoy this type of tier list content, you want to see more like it, leave a like on the video and subscribe. And if you want to go the extra mile, make sure you click that join button in the description, as well as on the channel homepage. You can join for just like $3 or $4 a month, and you get your name shouted out at the end of videos, as well as a few other perks. So if you feel like that's worth your time, make sure to hit the button. But with that said, comment down below what type you want to see next, and let's get into it. So for anyone who's new to the tier list videos, I do have a few things that I obviously need to go over. How are we ranking the tier lists? So we're taking an amalgamation of combinations for VGC, anything goes, Ubers, OU, etc. You name it. If it's a format that enough people play, I'm going to consider it here. For that reason, I don't know a lot of people that play Battle Spot singles, so that's going to be left off. But mostly just basically any format that I have any knowledge on is basically what we're using it for. So with that said though, what are the rankings? So S+ is for Pokemon that are the top of them, something like a Ninetales Anything Goes, Ubers for Sword and Shield, BDSP Ubers, or VGC. VGC because it's a restricted meta right now, and there's not really any doubles like Ubers. Well, there is, but it's so unplayed comparison because no one really does the Smogon ladders for doubles in comparison to VGC. VGC is the most noteworthy doubles ladder, so we're using that. S tier is for Pokemon that are outside of that like top 3-5 range in doubles. They're basically not the meta-defining Pokemon for ice types, and that's pretty much it. Really, basically, if the ice type doesn't define one of these metagames, it's going to be in the S range. It might also be for a top tier OU Pokemon. If we're thinking OU, it would probably be like a Landorus, Therian, or a Heatran. Otherwise, it's probably not going to be in there. A rank is for Pokemon that are still really good in OU. Maybe they're barely in Ubers, or maybe they're like okay in VGC. The B tier is going to be for Pokemon that are mostly like the UU range. Maybe they're like really fringe OU picks. C tier is for Pokemon that are like pretty good in RU. Maybe they're like really low end UU or hovering between. D tier is for Pokemon that are mostly in like the NUP range. And the F tier is for Pokemon that are literally here because they're fully evolved, or they're better than something in the fully evolved portion of the list, but still deserving of F tier. So with that said, of course, let's get started on the tier list. So going over the first Pokemon on our tier list, of course, we do have Alolan Sandslash. So Alolan Sandslash is actually a pretty interesting mon. This was a Pokemon that, if we look throughout the generation, ended up actually getting banned. Alolan Sandslash with Veil was such a good Pokemon, it actually got banned completely from, I believe it was the NU tier that I want to say. Yeah, it's looking like it was a ban in the NU tier, because it was too good with something like Aurora Veil, and while Aurora Veil itself mostly got banned up, there were definitely some Pokemon that were still some really good setters, and even still, this was a really good Slush Rush mon. I want to say this is definitely like a low-end C-tier Pokemon. As far as Ice types go, it's actually a pretty okay one. I won't act like this is some amazing Ice type or anything, but it's a pretty competent one at what it does. It's a cool Hail Sweeper, being one of the fastest Slush Rush users too. In fact, I actually think it is the fastest Slush Rush user, because everything else is either in the 40s or 50 range. So having 65, it's pretty good. And while it's 4 times weak to Fighting and Fire, while still having a lot of other weaknesses, offensively speaking, Ice and Steel definitely is at least not a terrible typing, especially when it has coverage for things like Steels and Fires when Hail is up. So I think this is not a bad Pokemon. The dual hazards also help a lot, so I think C-tier fits. Next was Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales definitely gets a solid A tier, a really solid A tier. This mon has actually been really amazing this generation as an amazing fail setter. The really fast speed too, in comparison to something like a Vanillux or an Aurorus, definitely does define this over other Pokemon, as well as the fact that, in my personal opinion, the utility that A9 offers is a little bit more valuable in tandem with the speed tier. So I think Alolan Ninetales definitely is very deserving of that A tier. And yeah, there's honestly not a lot to say. It's really just a support Pokemon, but it's a really good support Pokemon. Next up, we do have Cloyster. Now, Cloyster actually is a really weird one to tier. Most people are going to think of Cloyster as a Shell Smash Pokemon, but this definitely does more than that. If you look at a tier like BDSP Ubers, for example, this is a pretty good Rapid Spin option, as well as a good Spiker. It's niche in several different Ubers formats, actually. It's a pretty good low-tier Shell Smash Pokemon. It's okay even in BDSP OU. I personally am actually going to give this a B tier. I think it's definitely a solid amount better than Alolan Sandslash. And while it is viable in upper tiers, I don't think it holds a candle to what A9 can in OU at least. And even still, this Pokemon's best tier was probably like a UU RU sort of range. In pretty much every sense, I think A9 at the very least is a really strong hold on the OU metagame currently. So I do want to give it its own tier, even though I think you could make a case for a very low A tier Cloyster. I don't really feel confident enough to give it that personally. Next is Dugong. Dugong's pretty terrible. It's a water ice type. Dugong also has like no actual stat line. Its highest status is 95 SpDef. Most of its stats are in the 80 to 70 range. Its coverage is okay at best. I mean, it has some not bad coverage, but the issue is most of its actual not stab hits below like 80. Or I guess at 80, barring Megahorn. Megahorn is like literally the exception. And I guess Iron Tail. Megahorn and Iron Tail. The point being is it doesn't have great coverage. It hits over the 100, and its good coverage is like Drill Run, or actually it's like Drill Run, and that's it. Because it's a water ice type. Oh my god. Yeah, this is really bad. This is a really bad Pokemon. I think Walreign's even better than it. In fact, I'll actually tier Walreign right now while I'm talking about it, because it's going in the same tier, but I think that Walreign will just literally be the slot above. Walreign's another ice type, but I think the difference between Walrein and Dugong is mostly the fact that I think that Walrein has a little bit better of a move pool, considering instead of Drill Run, this thing is Earthquake. Instead of Iron Tail, this is Iron Head, which will at least hit. As well as Steel Roller, which is like kind of okay, but not really ever really practical. This also has options like Crunch and Body Press, which Body Press, especially with Curse, is actually pretty cool for an option for Steels and Rocks. So Walrein's definitely just the better version of Dugong, I think, in every sense. Next up, though, we do have Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime Galar is a pretty okay Pokemon. This is definitely an F tier, but I don't think it's at least like Walrein Dugong bad. And it's solely for the fact this is a fast option with Screen Cleaner, which is actually a really good ability. While I'm not going to act like this is some top low tier Pokemon or anything, its coverage is really good, and the 100 speed is actually really amazing. And being a really good Screen Cleaner with that ability, you're able to phase out any sort of screens to build a better hyper offense around it. This has some good options as well in the utility department, such as Fake Out and Rapid Spin, so I think it's actually a kind of good Pokemon for F tier. As far as F tier goes, it's probably going to be one of the better ice types that end up there. Jinx will be up next. Jinx is an okay, actually, ice psychic type, albeit I know this is also like another one of those like NU-PU mons that kind of teeters in and out of PU, but I think it's at least better by a good amount than a lot of these F tiers. I'm going to put it in D, but I think I might lower it later. It has some good options like Teleport and Wish, for example, so it can be a nice Wish passer if nothing else, with an okay HP stat for low tier with 65. Again, I won't act like it's amazing, but it's okay for low tier. This has some good options like Nasty Plot, though, with some pretty good coverage with stuff like Focus Blast, for example, which is amazing on a Pokemon that is so resisted by steals. So I do like that a lot. Personally, I think that Jinx is definitely a good amount better, at least, than its lower tier Pokemon. Also, having the immunity and dry skin is honestly really nice. So I gotta give it to Jinx. It's not terrible. Lapras is up next. Regular Lapras is definitely gonna go in the D tier. I think that regular Lapras is honestly a pretty good Pokemon. Again, similar to Jinx, this is a Pokemon that's not like some standout PU Pokemon or anything. In fact, it's not PU at all. But I think that, well, actually, I'm gonna put it below Jinx. Solely for the fact that this is a little bit too slow for my liking, as far as the low tier goes. But it's a pretty not bad Assault Vest Pokemon. You can definitely make that work. Same as Curse Sets. However, the one thing I do think will actually really shine is Gmax Lapras. Gmax Lapras is a solid S tier Pokemon. It's no S plus for sure. In fact, I'll be completely honest, I don't think we'll hit an S plus with the Ice typing personally. A lot of Ice types don't really hold up in sort of the top of the meta stance. In fact, the closest we've had to an S plus Ice type is arguably Glastrier, and it's definitely went down significantly since that hype. So I can't really justify putting it in S plus, obviously, but it's really the closest we've ever had to that sort of mod. Maybe Calyrex Ice would be the closest we currently have, but in terms of like ever had, it would have been Glastrier. But Lapras Gmax is actually a really solid Gmax Pokemon. Setting Aurora Veil, this is really amazing to pop weakness policies on both Lapras and other Pokemon. This is a really good support piece in VGC, and it's insanely difficult to KO. There have been several metagames where this has been one of the best Gmax options, and while it currently is definitely not one of the best, it's still an okay Gmax option, even in the current metagame. Despite really you're kind of being held back without running a Gmax Zard, Venusaur, it's pretty much a detriment actually to run any other Gmax Pokemon currently, unless you're going to run a Dimax option instead. But Lapras is still one of the better options you could run, in my personal opinion. So I'm going to give it S. It's been a really solid one throughout a majority of metagames. It just Season 12 was not very kind to it, was all. Next up is Articuno. Articuno definitely got a lot better this gen with heavy-duty boots. Again, still not a great option, but I would definitely slide it at least below these guys. I don't know if this is an F tier option again. I think that what this offers with stuff like Heal Bell, Defog, etc., as well as the fact this has had some stalls in lower tiers that aren't necessarily PU, that have been kind of okay through generations. So I'm at least going to give Articuno the D tier off of that premise. The fact that it's not outright unviable. I think these F tiers are outright unviable, or at the very least NFEs that are somehow borderline viable. The point being is that I don't think it's D tier and it's F tier quality, but at the same time, it's a really bad D tier in my opinion. Next up, though, we do have Sneasel. Sneasel's back to, again, another C-tier Pokemon, actually. While this has had metagames where it's definitely been really good, I won't act like it's amazing this gen anymore, but Sneasel definitely has it. Actually, no, I'm going to put it D tier. It's still definitely one of the better D tiers, but I think the fact that it's not currently even really tiered is definitely a big issue for it. Though Sneasel's had some metagames where it's been really viable. 115 speed is actually really good for low tier. The fact that it's a dark ice type, really offensively speaking, it's amazing. And we see from Pokemon like Weavile that typing can actually be pretty dangerous. In my personal opinion, I think the power creep's caught up a little bit in the lower tiers, considering now our RU setting has Pokemon like Thundurus, for example, if I remember correctly. Or maybe I thought he actually seems like it's no longer there. But even still, it has Pokemon such as Incineroar, Bronzong, Cloyster, Gardevoir, Milotic. Pokemon that in past generations, especially stuff like Reuniclus as well, have been in the UU sort of range. So power creep is definitely caught up a lot. However, at the same time, I still think this is definitely a really good Pokemon as far as ice types go. So we'll give it the D tier. Piloswine's up next, and again, similarly, this is an NFE that was once really good, but it's no longer that case. I'm going to put it again in the D tier above Jinx. Since this is basically just, D tier has basically just become the okay PU below ones and the F tiers that are outright unusable, because there is actually such a gap in ice types between Null and Sandslash and everything else. That's basically what the tiers become. But the Piloswine's a pretty good Violet mon. It's a decent rocker. Priority's really good on it. Ground typing obviously as well, helping with steals and rocks that would otherwise bother ice, is actually pretty good. So I'll give it to Piloswine. It's a pretty okay option. Delibird's a pretty terrible option though. Delibird has like some okay support options with stuff like Fake Out and Rapid Spin and Spikes. But overall though, the stat line is terrible. The fact that this base 75 speed is the best stat is actually really terrible. I'm actually going to put it below Walrein. I think it's a little bit better than... actually, I'm going to put it above Walrein. The spikes honestly are pretty okay, especially with Fake Out and Rapid Spin. You can get some good utility off of this if nothing else. And also the fact that you have stuff like Ice Shard and Hustle can allow you to hit somewhat hard. So I'll give it to Delibird. It's at least better than Walrein and Dugong, but it's still not great. Glalie is definitely F tier. If Moody was allowed, this would be a little higher. Glalie not good though in any sense. This is honestly, in my opinion, even a worse spiker than Delibird, because it doesn't really get a lot of the same utility that Delibird gets. Stuff like Destiny Bond or Fake Out and stuff in Rapid Spin. This misses out on a lot. It's still okay though. The fact that it has spikes means it's better than Dugong, because at least it can do one thing, being a hazard setter. Moody's kind of cool, but you're really never playing in a format where Moody Glalie is a viable Pokemon, so I can't really tear it off of that. Mega Glalie, on the other hand, it's a pretty okay Pokemon. This is definitely, in my personal opinion, a D tier Pokemon. Mega Glalie definitely, as far as a Natnex Mega goes, is not great. It is far from great, actually. But I do think that they're, again, similarly to like a Sneasel or something like that, I think there's at least a reason that you could maybe use Mega Glalie. I'm going to put it actually right below Sneasel, because Mega Glalie has had some formats where it's been an okay option. It's just not great right now. But again, it's really what it's come down to, because a lot of ice types are just so unviable. We really need to hear historically here. Next to those, Regice. Regice is actually a pretty interesting one. It's, again, another one of those, like, not PU mons that can sometimes be PU. It's a really good ZU Pokemon when that format's allowed. It's a little bit better than Jinx in my personal opinion. The AV sets are really incredible on this. Boots this generation as well with Regice is actually also really cool. A lot of great special coverage actually with Bolt Beam, which is really hard to actually get as a stab for one of your types. Having Bolt Beam coverage with one of those being a stab. That's actually fairly rare, especially in comparison for ice type standards. So I can give it to Regice. In my opinion, at least this card's at a good niche in lower tiers, even if it's not really a lower tier Pokemon. So yeah, Regice, honestly, a really good option. Next was Abomasnow. If Veil was allowed, this would be a C tier option for sure. Veil is really not allowed in lower tiers though, so I'm gonna put it below Lapras, I think. No, I'm gonna put it above Lapras. No, below Lapras, because Lapras at least can help defensively with more weaknesses than Abomasnow can. Because at the very least, if nothing else, Lapras can at least make its weakness to fire neutral because of the water typing. Abomasnow can still hit rock types offensively with super effective, but it's not gonna actually switch into them. So I'll give Lapras lower on a Abomasnow lower solely on that. This is still kind of a cool Pokemon that was something like Veil. It's a cool BSP Pokemon actually. Is like kind of okay. Again, I won't act like this is amazing, but it's an okay lower tier BDSP option with the Ice Grass being actually a fairly okay offensive typing, since it does allow Abomasnow to hit water types pretty well, which is actually okay. So I'll give Abomasnow D tier. Mega Abomasnow on the other hand, I'll be honest, I'm gonna give this D tier as well, but I'm gonna put it right below Glalie. Mega Abomasnow has some cool options to it though, of course, such as, for example, the fact that it's a lot bulkier. It's a really good Trick Room option. It's really good mixed offenses too, the 132, 132. It has stuff like Priority, obviously. if this is a really good Leech 3 attacks mon. Again, one Eclipse is amazing, but again, we don't have a lot of options here as far as ice types go. It's definitely better than a lot of the pool. Weavile's up next. Weavile, I'm actually going to put Ness. Weavile has been one of the best Pokemon as far as the Sword and Shield meta goes, very consistently actually. If we look at the current viability rankings, for example, this is actually currently an S- Pokemon, which is, it says a lot. Weavile has been holding on that spot for a while as well, and even as far as Natdex goes, this is still a really top tier Pokemon. Albeit, if I remember correctly, this is only an A+ Pokemon in Natdex, but maybe it's in the S? No, it's actually a flat-out S Pokemon in Natdex. It's even better viably, technically. I do think, though, that Weavile, regardless, actually holds a spot. Even outside of that, it's a kind of niche Pokemon in Ubers. Actually, no, I'm pretty sure Weavile is actually borderline viable now in Ubers. Been a while since I played the tier, but I did remember seeing a Frieza video where people were actually running beat-up Weavile because of the fact that it did a lot of damage on bandit sets. I don't know how viable Weavile is these days. It's actually an A- Pokemon. Holy shit, this mon is viable in Ubers. Again, I haven't played a lot of Sword and Shield Ubers in a while. I'm kind of shocked to see that it's that high. I knew it wasn't bad. I just thought it was in like the B range, but damn. Regardless, though, I still, even off the OU rankings alone, I do think a Weavile is very deserving of that S rank. It's really good, and it's better than a lot of other ice types. In fact, it's as viable as Galadarm in Ubers. Oh my god. This mon is really cracked. It's one of those like really god-given typings. Dark Ice is so amazing offensive, and it's really hard to switch into, especially when you have options like Low Kick as well, which are really good for the few Pokemon that can switch in. Amazing. Really good bandit option, really good Sword Dance spawn. Has some good utility even with Fake Out. Cool Pokemon. Also, on that note, I do actually want to make an addendum. I'm going to be moving Sneasel up actually to the top of C tier because of the fact that I did forget this is actually a really good Coal Popper. With stuff like Surf, for example, you could actually pop Cole's weakness policy really easily with Sneasel, and it's one of the better Pokemon to do it outside of priority options. So I gotta give it to Sneasel. It's at least something. This was actually a very viable option throughout several metagames with Cole, so I can't just deny it at that slot. We're gonna give it top of C tier. We're gonna make that addendum. I'm sorry for anyone who already commented in the bottom saying that Sneasel was clearly a good Pokemon in VGC. Your voice has been heard. I did not read your comment yet though, but your voice has been heard. Glaceon's up next. Glaceon, I really hate that I have to do this, but Glaceon's a pretty terrible Pokemon. Again, one of those like PU, like gate-kept Pokemon. This is honestly an F tier Pokemon. I really hate that I have to do it though. It's definitely worse than Mime at least. Actually, no, it's better than Mime. I forgot this has some okay coverage with like Freeze Dry and never mind. I'm thinking of Radical Red. Yeah, no, this is worse than like Delibird even. I'd actually argue it's worse than Walrein, which is so hard to, well, actually, no, I wouldn't go that far. This at least can be a good Wish Passer, and it's a Cleric option. I still think it's worse than Delibird, because if nothing else, Delibird could be a kind of cool utility option with Hazards and Destiny Pond. But, oh my god, I hate that this Pokemon is so bad. I love this Pokemon so much. It's definitely an F tier. I'm so sorry, Glaceon. Get better next gen. Mamoswine. Mamoswine's definitely a solid A tier Pokemon. Top of A, well, actually, no, bottom of A. Really good in BDSP. In fact, it's actually an amazing Pokemon at BDSP, if I remember correctly. However, it's not that great in the current Sword and Shield metagames, albeit it's not a bad Pokemon by any means. But if we look at Mamoswine's current tier, Mamoswine is definitely not exactly a tier definer in OU or anything, and it's just sitting comfortably in UU. It's been sitting comfortably in UU for a while, actually. But if we do look at the BDSP rankings for Mamoswine, I do believe this is, yeah, it's an A- Pokemon. So I think if nothing else, the BDSP ranking does kind of carry it, at least outside of B, if nothing else. This is definitely a solid OU Pokemon, able to handle a lot of top tier threats, like for example, Garchomp, Heatran, Gliscor. So I do want to give it to Mamoswine where credit is due. This is a really good option as a ground type that can handle a lot of the other top grounds. So A tier. Frostless, on the other hand, Frostless is definitely a C tier Pokemon. I'm going to put it below Load and Sandslash. Frostless has had a lot of tiering identity this gen, but if nothing else, I will say that unlike a lot of the other D tiers, Frostless is actually kind of an okay Pokemon in BDSP as far as that format goes. For example, if we were to look at Frostless's tier, this is actually an RU Pokemon, which is better than I could say about something like a Jinx, for example, which is NU, about Regice, which is PU, about Abomasnow, which is PUBL, about Lapras, which is PU, so we'll give it to Frostless. We'll at least give it the RU because of, on the C tier because of its RU ranking, and because we have so many D tiers that are like PU range that's borderline inflated the tier list. Next to those, Rotom Frost, and Rotom Frost again is another really not good ice type. We have so many of them on this list because ice is a terrible fucking typing. However, it's at least better than a lot of the other ices. It's actually a really good ZU Pokemon similar to Regice. I'm going to put it right above Regi. I think Utilities has a little bit better, personally. It's also got options like Defog, for example. The Bolt Beam's still there, and it's a stab on both options, too. Will-O-Wisp is really good. Painslow's really cool. I gotta give it to Rotom Frost. It's still terrible, but man, it's my terrible Pokemon. Arceus Ice. I'll be honest. This probably could have merit for S+, just comparing to the tier list. But my god, Ice types suck. This is no exception. It's really bad as far as an Uber Arceus form goes. You're not going to really see a metagame where this is actually a viable Pokemon. In fact, let me actually pull up BDSP Ubers. And let me see if it is even kind of viable in that tier. Because I haven't actually played since Arceus has been around for BDSP Ubers. I am kind of curious, actually, though, how viable Arceus Ice is. I'm assuming it's a D tier Ice. Actually, C-. That's better than I thought. Good job, Arceus Ice. You're finally not an unviable Pokemon. To be fair, though, credit where it's actually due. Arceus Ice is actually an okay-ish Pokemon in some anything goes metagames. It's had some cores, actually, with Magearna, for example, in Gen 7, where it was actually topping the ladder. Really, really niche Pokemon, but it has some times where it kind of pipes up as an anti-meta pick. I'll give it S off of that, though. It's definitely better than Weavile, at least definitively speaking. It's, in my opinion, less good than G-Max Lapras. Unironically, G-Max Lapras right now has the best case of anything we currently have documented for an S+, but I digress. G-Darm. G-Darm is definitely an S tier. Again, right above Weavile. That's where it's viable. I'm actually going to put these both right by each other. They make each other more viable, I'll be honest. The fact that you can pop Zen does make Galadon better, and the fact that Zen can rely on baiting that it's Scarfed makes Zen better. They're both really equal. It's not like with something like with a regular Darm where the Zen in regular form are so differently tiered. But I did want to mention it anyway because I did actually tier the Zen mode in the Fire type tier list. I felt like I had to tier it here. They're both pretty much equal, though. They're both really good breakers. Galardarm is, for at least the non-Zen mode, it's a really good Scarfer. And for the Zen mode, it's an amazing sweeper. With stuff like Belly Drum and Salic, you can go with subsets typically and pop that really quickly. So I gotta give it to Galadon. Really good Pokemon in as far as the ladder goes. Next up, we do have Vanilluxe. Again, another one of these Pokemon that is so unviable, but at the very least, again, similarly to stuff like Alolan Sandslash, it at least got banned from a low tier. Albeit this one was PU. I'm gonna definitely put this like the higher end of D tier. I'm gonna put it right below Mega Glalie personally. I think Mega Glalie is still probably the best option we have here, but Vanilluxe is still a really good option with the Hellish generation. It's been a pretty cool Scarf option as far as Ice types go, and it actually just got banned from PU. So congratulations, Vanilluxe. You can not be in F tier purgatory. Beartic, on the other hand, though, Beartic is terrible. I know this is a really cool like dual weather sweeper, but no one actually runs it because it's base 50 speed. And while the coverage is okay, when you're base 50 speed, to put it in perspective, even if you're running Jolly, you're not even outpacing Pokemon that are base 150. And I know that, to be fair, that's still kind of impressive. You're outpacing like Dragapult or Zeraora, for example. But you have to run Jolly for that, which means you're missing out on some good damage output unless you're running Life Orb, which means you're then very susceptible to hazards. Because with just 252 attack and the 31 IVs, you're hitting at 359. It's not bad, but that's pretty much the equivalent of like a 110 special attack or 110 physical attack Pokemon, just slightly better. Your options offensively speaking, they're not terrible, but this misses out on stuff like Triple Axle, for example. It misses out on good coverage options like Earthquake, for example. I'm going to give this definitely an F tier, but I'm going to put it really high in F. This is actually going to be our top of F tier just because it's a Weather Sweeper. And I do think that, if anything else, that's actually a really good niche that it has, but it's still so unviable, and it's never really a viable Pokemon. Next was Cryogonal. Again, another one of those like unviable ice types, but it at least, again, has the Rapid Spin merit, and this has some Z's it's kind of viable in. We'll give it D tier at the very least. Cryogonal has some good utility with stuff like Recover, for example, and Rapid Spin. Free Strike's really cool on it. Special Ice is always really cool. Dual Hazard, dual removal as well with Defog can be kind of useful, because depending on what Ghost was viable in the format, if there's something really top tier, you could switch the set to Defog, and it still does the same job for the team. Maybe you need to give up Spice for something a little less more stacked, but it's pretty much the same mon. Cool utility as well, like Knockoff, and you could even do Explosion sets, I guess, but why would you, outside of maybe just realizing you've made a mistake running a Pokemon? Regardless, though, D tier. Kyurem's up next. Kyurem, I'll be honest, I'm gonna give Kyurem actually an S tier. I'm gonna put it right below the Darm, though. No, I'm actually gonna put it right below Weavile and S. It did get banned in Sword and Shield OU, yes. However, if we look at the Natdex OU, Kyurem is actually still allowed, and it's still very allowed. I don't even actually think this is like a top tier Pokemon. It's an A rank Pokemon. It's still really good. And I do want to acknowledge its ban in Sword and Shield actually as an S still, because it is still a very popular meta. It's not like BDSP where we were tiering like Blaziken, for example, and the metagame has like a few Pokemon, and most of the Pokemon that would counter it are not there. Whereas in Sword and Shield and Natex, there's both like a PL Pokemon. Kyurem is still a viable Pokemon in OU. However, Weavile tops that meta, and Weavile is also still more viable in Ubers, albeit that's actually really only because of the Kyurem forms being in Ubers as well. But even still, I gotta give Kyurem credit where it's due. It's still amazing this gen with Free Shot Earth Power combination. It's able to break through a lot of teams. It's able to roost stall with pressure through a lot of teams. Even Dragon Dance sets are actually really amazing on it this gen. So I want to give the S tier. Kyurem White's up next. And I can't lie, I'm really tempted to give Kyurem White an S+, but I really don't want to because it's actually such a bad Pokemon. Same as Kyurem Black. Again, another really not good Pokemon. I'm gonna put these both above Weavile because at least they're not actually OU Pokemon in a single metagame. But they're gonna go below Galiodarm because Galiodarm is a fucking monster. And Kyurems are still really inviable in VGC, albeit same as Galiodarm. But yeah, actually, I'll put Kyurem White above Galiodarm. I'm gonna keep Kyurem Black below because Kyurem White actually has some cores where it's almost viable. Kyurem Black though is just terrible in VGC because it's so intimidating susceptible. It's literally, if you're running Kyurem Black, it's because you want to run Kyurem White and you forgot to breed a Reshiram or to catch a Reshiram. The point being is that Kyurem White is like decent-ish kind of as a niche Pokemon in VGC. Kyurem Black is awful. They're both Ubers though. Kyurem Black is a very smidge over Kyurem White and Ubers, but even still, it's not. Neither are great. They're both very outclassed by Darm, but Darm is just so inviable in VGC. You could really, like, that cluster of 4 you could probably tier anywhere among the 4, but I can't litter this tier. No, never mind. I'm backtracking. I'm gonna put another Pokemon in S+ though. I've decided. I know I've said for a while I wasn't going to, but I can't litter it in the same tier as Kyurem White and Kyurem Black. They're so bad, but they're still so good compared to like Mamoswine and Alola Ninetales. Aurorus is up next. Again, one of those like really good ZU Pokemon. I'll put it above Lapras for nothing else. Yeah, it's kind of cool with Hail at least. The Ice Rock typing is really enough, kind of okay offensively. It's a really good Scarfer actually with Refrigerate. That's another thing I like about this a lot, especially with Aurorus. You actually do get some solid options with stuff like, for example, Hyper Voice with Refrigerate. I don't know why it took me a bit to remember, but it's actually kind of cool, albeit typically you are, of course, going to run Snow Warning, and this does also get Aurora Veil generation, just like every other Ice type did. I'm going to cop out, actually, and I'm going to put this in F tier. I lied, but I'm going to put it top of F tier. I do think in hindsight, these mods are all definitely better, and while Aurorus is still kind of a cool ZU option, at the very least, the other Pokemon have actual not Sword and Shield metagames they're viable in, though to Aurorus' credit, that's because they're BDSP viable, which doesn't say a lot. Next up, though, we have Avalugg. Avalugg is actually kind of a cool Pokemon this gen. Avalugg got some options like Heavy Duty Boots, obviously, that do help it a bit, albeit it's still not great. I'm gonna put it at least below Articuno. It's still in D tier, but again, similar to Articuno, this has some stalls that it's kind of viable on. Next up, though, we do have Hisuian Avalugg. So we do have to switch over to the Radical Red server for this one, of course, just so I can pull up the moveset, but this mod is actually kind of good. Well, not kind of good, it's kind of okay. But Avalugg does have some stuff going for it, though. Options like, for example, the Ice Rock typing actually as a trigger mod would be amazing offensively. This has some good coverage with, well, good stabs with Stone Edge and Icicle Crash. Well, no, it doesn't have Icicle Crash, but it has Icicle Spear, at least, which is okay. Ice Fang, which is okay. It probably will get Icicle Crash for what it's worth, because if I remember correctly, Berg might get Icicle Crash. No, it does not. What the fuck? Oh, this mod's terrible. Okay. It still wasn't going to tier it high anyway. But I do think that, to its credit, this is actually kind of a cool offensive mon with 127 attack. It's actually really amazing. And this still gets a lot of the good utility with stuff like Rapid Spin, and it also actually gets Stealth Rock, which is pretty cool. This is still definitely an F tier Pokemon, but at the same time though, stuff like Strong Jaw does make Ice Fang a little more viable than Icicle Crash actually would have been, which is actually kind of cool. Offensively speaking, this is kind of potent, but it's just a better Aurorus in my opinion. It really is. I think the one edge that Aurorus has is that it's some hail, obviously, so it can set Aurora Veil more reliably, but this still gets a lot of the same utility, so yeah, I'm gonna give it F tier. I think these two are pretty interchangeable, I'll be honest though. Crabominable It's again another one of those ice types that covers steel. Again, it's still also really bad though in lower tiers. This is not really a Pokemon that's ever really viable in lower tiers. We're gonna put it in F, but I'm gonna put it up with Beartic. Because if nothing else, the Iron Fist plus the stab option, it's really good. It's an okay niche Trick Room option for low tiers. It's really all I'll give it. Savali Ice, pretty unviable Savali type. We're gonna put this literally below Glalie, or we're gonna put it above above Glaceon, because at least it's coverage. But its utility is a little worse than Delibirds, so yeah, as a utility Pokemon, it's a little bit worse. It's definitely like as bad as Savali forms can come, because it's an Ice type that has the same removal as something like a Krogonal, Avalugg, etc., but you can't run Boots on it, which is pretty terrible for low tiers, because those are already Pokemon that can barely make PU. Mr. Rhyme, again, another terrible Pokemon. One of those fringe PU mons. I think it's actually worse than Galar Mime, I'll be honest. I think that Galar Mime, if nothing else, has the speed advantage at least to spin a little bit faster. So I'll give it F tier, and I'm going to put it right below Galar Mime. Frostmoss up next. Frostmoss is kind of cool in low tier. Again, not terrible, but this is at least an actual PU Pokemon, so I'll give it that. We're going to put it right below Mega Bombsnow. Because at the very least, Mega Bombsnow and Mega Glalie, if they were allowed, I don't think they'd be like PU Pokemon. I think they'd both probably be NU, I'll be honest. Or maybe they're PU, but they're at least like tiered in PU, unlike something like a Piloswine or a Regice. So we'll give it that. I think that Frostmoth as well is a pretty cool quiver option, but it has so many things that absolutely wall it. Because as far as coverage goes, you don't have anything for steals in this Pokemon. You don't have anything for, well, no, you have Giga Drain for rocks. You don't have anything for fires on this Pokemon, and this is 4 types weak to fire. It's not great, but Ice Scales is a pretty cool ability actually, and it does allow us to set up a little bit easier, so we'll give it D tier. Ice Use up next. Again, another one of these like really shitty ice types. Holy shit, this Pokemon's terrible. However, at the very least, Belly Jump's kind of cool on it. We're gonna give it F tier. I'm gonna put it right above Galar Mine, because if nothing else, Ice Face is actually a really obnoxious ability to play around. So we'll give it that. I think it's a really fair tiering for it, I'll be honest. Realistically, this is still a really terrible Pokemon as far as Ice Cube goes, but Ice Face is such an obnoxious ability. And the speed is actually really cool on jump sets, because you can definitely make something like a Belly Jump set pop. Once you're attacked by a physical move, you can then go for a sweep, and it's kind of okay. I mean, 80 offense once you're at +6 is not terrible. So we'll give it that. Arctozolt's up next. Arctozolt gets right above Mamoswine. Actually, I'm going to put it right above A9. And it's solely for the fact that while technically A9 is a little bit more viable of a Pokemon, if I remember correctly, I would actually need to double check my numbers. Actually, Arctozolt seems like it's a little bit worse. I'm going to put it back down. Because originally I was thinking that because A9 is finally viable again outside of just running it with Arctozolt. So I'll give it that, because A9 is pretty viable as Veilmon, and Veil's kind of viable again, outside of course, Hail teams. But Arctozolt definitely is really obnoxious. Bulbabeam is amazing in OU currently. It's great for stuff like Landorus Theory and Toxapex, Slowbro, you name it. It's so amazing for it. And there's so few Pokemon that really reliably switch on this. You can run stuff like Freeze Dry, for example, for the niche Gastrodons that'll come up. You can run stuff like Low Kick, for example, for stuff like T-Tar. You have a lot of fucking options. You can Stomping Tantrum or Heatran. I could run through tons of coverage just against. It's really just a 4 Moveset Syndrome sort of Pokemon. But it is still an amazing pick in my personal opinion. So we're going to give it A tier. Next up we do have Glastrier. Now Glastrier is an interesting one. Again, I'm definitely not, despite being a PU Pokemon, I'm definitely not going to give it D tier, because this is actually kind of a viable Pokemon in VGC. Albeit, for what it's worth, Glastrier definitely has went down because of the fact that Calyrex Ice is still a usable Pokemon. However, the caveat there being is that it's mostly because the restricted format. Actually, Arctozolt's first. No, Arctovish is first. Sorry, I skipped one. Arctovish is definitely, again, one of those like, D-tier mons. But Vicious Friend is such a broken move. I'm at least going to put it above Regice. I think Rotom Frost at least is one of these, like, few... Actually, no, I'm going to put it above Regice. Vicious Friend itself is just such a broken move. I gotta respect that at least, but it's still terrible. Absolutely terrible. It's just carried by a move. Next up, though, Glastrier. Glashier's had a few metagames where it's been viable in VGC. It still is a PU Pokemon. I am going to put this in C tier, at least at the very, very bottom of C tier. It's kind of a cool OU Trick Room mon as well, so I don't want to tier it in, like, the D tier range. I think it would be a little bit of a disservice to how good Glastrier can be, at least. Albeit, it's still not great, but it's definitely better than a lot of these D and F tier Pokemon in my personal opinion. Finally, though, we do have the other ice source being Calyrex Ice. I'm going to put this in S+, and it's solely for the fact that in comparison to other ice types, it is leagues above every other ice type. However, I do have to put a big however here. Calyrex Ice definitely does have a lot of competition as far as Calyrex Shadow goes in VGC, and when you can only run one of those in a team, it definitely does hurt a lot of the merit for Calyrex Ice. However, Trick Room is still really good, and this is still an absolutely amazing physical attacker in the tier, as one is such a broken ability too, and even still, if we're to look in the BDSP Uber's metagame, well not the BDSP, the Sword and Shield Uber's metagame for how good this Pokemon actually is, because it's not a terrible Pokemon, albeit I wouldn't say this is amazing, but it's still at least kind of viable in C+, which is something. This has had some metagames where it's even reached the B range as far as Sword and Shield Ubers goes, so I think at the very least S Plus is deserving off of that. I know technically in Sword and Shield Ubers it's worse, but it's leagues above every other option in VGC, and it's still a viable Sword and Shield Ubers mon. Like, I don't even think, unlike compared to a lot of the other C+ Pokemon, you're actually even at that much of a disservice. I think you could actually make a case for this even being a B- Pokemon in Sword and Shield Ubers, or like a flat B. Zama's into Crown's usage definitely does hurt it, to be fair. I know it's been on the rise a bit, but even still, this is still a pretty not bad Pokemon for a lot of the metagame. But regardless, so I think its VGC usage is so immensely better than a lot of these other Pokemon that I do have to give credit where due, and I do want to give this the S+ category. So what did you guys think of the tier list, though? If you guys enjoyed, leave a like below, and let me know what you guys think about the tier list, and let me know as well what types you want to see next. I do have a few types that I do have at the back burner from some comments you guys left on the Poison type tier list video, so I'm going to be pulling from those next. I just chose Ice because there's a really quick type, and I'm having a lot of eye pain, so I'll be getting to your guys' comments types very shortly, so just be on the look on that for next week's tier list video. But with that said, of course, thank you to our channel members, of course, being Josh, aka Ultra Player, Mia, and Zeke0. Your guys' support is greatly appreciated. And again, if you want to support the channel, click on the join button down below. But with that said, I'll see you guys later. Peace out, guys.